Hello YouTube, my name is Isabella and welcome back to my channel Stubbornly Bookish. Today I'm going to be doing my February wrap-up. In terms of ratings, they're a little all over the place, so it's pretty much just a mixed bag, so let's just get into it. The first book I finished in February was Pride by E.B. Zaboy. This is actually pitched as a Pride and Prejudice remix, and it follows our main character Zuri, who is mainly focused on applying and getting into her college of choice. And then actually the wealthy Darcys move in across the street, and she just knows that these rich people are actually going to attempt to change the neighborhood that she so loves. Now, I actually really enjoyed my time listening to this story. I listened to the audiobook, which is narrated by Elizabeth Acevedo, so definitely recommend the narrated version. In terms of the actual story, I can tell you that I loved most of our characters in here. I thought Zuri, our main character, was a fantastic character. She is incredibly realistic. She's flawed. She's pretty quick to judge and stubborn, but she's also fiercely loyal and passionate about so many things, and I loved reading from her perspective. I also really enjoyed all of the sisters and their different dynamics with all of one another. I loved the emphasis on community and family and just like love between family. Forgot to mention this, Pride and Prejudice is one of my all-time favorite books. It's always a little intimidating going into retelling, but I thought this was done fantastically. I loved all the nods to the originals, and what she chose to shift and adapt I thought was actually quite fantastic and really suited the story very well. I'm not going to lie, I think our Darcy was just a little bit lacking. He didn't quite come with like the oomph I wanted when comparing like original Darcy to new Darcy. He just didn't quite have the legs to stand on, in my opinion. I thought this book also was a little rushed in some places. I wanted it to just be a little longer. I wanted it to be a little angstier. I thought the relationship flipped a little too quickly for me. That's okay. That's me just being a little nitpicky. I really enjoyed this story. It was a fantastic read. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I borrowed from my library, so I don't have it on me here, and boy was it a ride. Like, oh my god. It's A Winter's Promise by Christelle Dabos. This is actually a book that was translated from French, and it is a completed series in French. They only just started translating them, and I think putting them out once every year. This is set in a world where people basically now live on these giant massive arcs. Like entire towns can live on these arc type things, which are pictured on the cover. And our main character actually finds out at the beginning of the novel that she has been betrothed to a man from a northern arc, which is a notoriously cruel and terrible place, and she basically has to go along with it or she will be kicked out of her family forever. This book is incredibly weird and out there in terms of just like the world and the magic that happens and some of the stuff that happens way later. Like it's a wild ride. The world actually reminded me somewhat of a middle grade story and the whimsy that middle grade stories have, but in terms of the world building itself, like was not good at all. My biggest issue though with this story has to be with the main character. Our main character has no personality. I just want to put it on the record that being quirky and being klutzy do not equate to a fully realized human being. It's so overdone and so like Twilight era main characters, and I just was not a fan of that at all. There are a few glimpses that we get of a very well-reasoned, smart, clever, and stoic character, but she just goes through the motions and goes through the story without really having an opinion on anything, and it just drives me nuts. The book also could be very frustrating with the lack of world building and just our main character having any sort of agency whatsoever. It was a really tough read. I will say the last third of the book though, I was very hooked. I did really want to know what was going to happen next. This one just didn't quite work for me, and It's honestly nothing to do with the translation. I've read reviews of people who have read the original in French and said that the writing and everything is weird in the French version as well. So it's not the actual translation that is the issue here. I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars. This was a really, really strange book. The next book I read was Dear Martin by Nick Stone. This is a young adult contemporary that follows a Black teen boy who is on track to go to like an Ivy League school. He's doing everything right. However, one night he is falsely arrested, and he basically has to face a lot of issues such as like police brutality and profiling head on. And to do this, he actually writes letters to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to kind of wrap his mind around it and deal with the fallout and the consequences of his unjust arrest. I read this on ebook, that's why I have a picture here. I really loved hearing from the perspective of our main character, Justice. He is the one who's affected the most from police brutality and profiling, and listening from a Black boy or young man's perspective I thought was incredibly valuable. And I thought for the amount of time that Nick Stone has, she really explores a lot of things very, very well. I just really took issue with the actual formatting of this story. This story is initially told in third person, but we also have the letters, which are told in first person, written from Justice, obviously. And then there are times and points in the story where they get into a classroom and start having this debate. And then the debate kind of goes into script formatting and we get no description whatsoever, and entire just mounds of dialogue with no description. I wanted more time with these characters. I wanted more time learning about them. And I think only getting dialogue doesn't show you 100% what and who a character actually is. I wanted to know more, and when these awkward shifts would happen, it was really jarring for me personally, and it did take me out of the story and affect my enjoyment. So I ended up giving this 3.5 out of 5 stars. I definitely think though that this is worth the read and that you should give it a chance no matter my rating. I also forgot to mention that both Pride and Dear Martin are own voices, because today apparently I suck at reviewing. The next book I read I absolutely adored, and it's The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. This is actually a graphic novel set in Paris. I forget what year it's set in, but it follows a Belgian prince who has this massive secret that he actually likes to sometimes dress up in dresses and take on the town as Lady Cristelia. He runs into this super talented dressmaker and kind of ropes her in to help him succeed as Lady Cristelia. And it just follows these two, their friendship. It wasn't all easy at times. Our two main characters have disagreements and have a lot of issues with one another because their two ambitions kind of create this conflict. And I really liked actually seeing how their conflict is worked through. And there's also a couple upsetting scenes near the end where our prince is treated very terribly. But it's just, I think it's a lovely story that takes on gender, I think, incredibly well. I thought the art was really beautiful. The ending also happened to be one of my favorite parts. There is a shift in the narrative that I didn't expect, and it made me so happy. It was a delight to read. I loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. Totally recommend you picking this one up. Oh, I'm so upset. I just dropped my next book like really badly, and it just busted everything. I'm very upset. The next book I read was The Bells by Danielle Clayton. And boy, do I have a lot of thoughts about this book. This is set in a fictional New Orleans, and in this world, the people are actually born with gray skin and like red eyes and are supremely ugly. So they actually kind of enlist these magical beings called the Bells, who have the ability to change anyone's appearance at will. I didn't like this book that much, which sounds bad, but for whatever reason, I really couldn't connect with it. I thought the world itself was actually pretty great. I liked how decadent and lush the story was, like the setting was, but I think the writing kind of overdid it on kind of describing this world. It just, sometimes the writing was a lot. And like there was too much description, which is something I never say. I was really frustrated with our main character. Like, she was incredibly frustrating. She, at the beginning, is incredibly ambitious. She wants to get the best job. In this story, the Bells actually compete to be like crowned the winner, crowned the favorite, and the favorite actually gets to work in the palace, and she desperately wants to become this favorite, and she's going to do anything she can to get this job that she wants. But then halfway through the story, she just becomes like incredibly naive again. And I understand that to an extent. She's raised kind of separate from the population. She doesn't know much about society. It's just the lengths she goes through to remain naive, and when things are being revealed, she's just kind of like, what? And then does nothing about it. It was so frustrating. I did find the story very addicting, however. I did really want to know what was going to happen next. It was really easy to consume, and I wanted to know what was going to happen. I liked what the story was going for in terms of like commentary on society. I just think it takes a little bit too long to realize that there's commentary on society and how terrible society is with beauty standards. Also, a couple of content warnings. I think there would be incredibly triggering material if you have an eating disorder. And then we also feature kind of a bury your gaze kind of thing that goes on here. This book was also a very frustrating read. Our main character just was so dumb at times that it just made me want to go, oh my god. There was a lot of things in here that were very disappointing, so I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I just did not have a very fun time with it. The last book I read was my reread of the month. I'm discovering that I'm really liking rereading a book at the end of the month to kind of wrap my head around all the new things that I had read, and I reread Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo because it's on brand. I've been rereading the Six of Crows duology in preparation for King of Scars. This is the finale. We all know what it's about. I love this. It was a 5-star read. A little bit of a twist though. I think now Six of Crows might officially be my favorite book in the series when Crooked Kingdom was before. I don't know. I love these books so much. I just like everything. I did read it really quickly in the hopes of getting to certain scenes, which I think made the book feel a little bit long this time around because there are specific scenes that I just love. I really liked actually Wylan and Jesper's arcs and relationship in here. I obviously loved them before, but I really liked paying attention to them this time around. I love Crooked Kingdom. I love Leigh Bardugo. It's officially time for King of Scars, and I'm very scared that it's going to disappoint me. So that's it for my February wrap-up. It was definitely a dicey month. I did like most of what I read, but I did have 2 kind of frustrating books, which is always not fun when that is a third of your reading for the month. Hopefully March goes better. I'm currently between 2 books that I'm actually quite enjoying. I would like to know your favorite book that you read in February, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye!